Welcome everybody to our AI in 30 session today. For those of you who haven't joined before, this is going to be a short, but focus session on privacy with YouTubers. Before I introduce our speaker today, a couple of reminders. The session is being recorded, and you will be able to have access to the recording in less than a week after today. There's also going to be a toolkit that our speaker has pretty nicely put together for us, and I will be able to share that right after the session in the follow-up email. So keep that in mind. If you don't have time to see it, the link today or the file doesn't make it through, it will be on the email following up. Couple of things. Our next session will be 2 weeks from now, a little bit longer than that, but it will be on using visuals with AI. And we are preparing for season 2 of AI in 30 in the spring. So if there is a tool that you're using, an AI tool that you're using, and you would like to present, please reach out. We'll be glad to actually set it up so everybody can work out with that and be a presenter for this series on the spring. Without much further ado, I'm going to introduce Camielle Smith from our own ITS team, which is our speaker today, and she's going to be talking about privacy with YouTubers. Camielle, it's all yours.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. I am Camielle Smith. I work in the Information Technology Services Department, and I'm glad to be a part of this AI in 30 series with the Teaching and Learning Center. I'm going to try and quickly go through how privacy around AI is structured or is being structured because it's a developing landscape. And at the end, I'm going to take some questions that you might have. Feel free to put them in the chat as I go along, but I will be reading them off at the end. So the approach that I take to AI is the same approach that I think the university is trying to take to AI, which is to embrace the technology. I would say that artificial intelligence is probably one of the quickest proliferating technologies I've seen in my lifetime. And it is exponentially improving month over month, year over year. So in 2022, the White House also noticed that artificial intelligence was on the rise, and they started thinking about how to govern it. We're going to think about these things from a big perspective. We're going to think big and then get small about how security can be structured around AI. So here you see the blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, and it's got 5 tenets. The first tenet is safe and effective systems. So what's that mean? That means anything you're using, any artificial intelligence tool you use, including the one we're using today, it means it's been pre-tested. It's been proven, so to speak. And the outcomes are effective. So the outcomes when it comes to artificial intelligence are any response that it gives you, any image or video it might create. So any content that comes from artificial intelligence, you can consider that the outcome, and we want to make sure those outcomes are not only true and accurate, but we want to make sure they're being put to good use. And so that's one of the first ways to think about the structure and safety around artificial intelligence. Next up is algorithmic discrimination protection. So what's that mean? That means you're putting good data into the system. You don't want discriminate data going in. You want high quality data going in. So anything that you feed to an artificial intelligence, it helps to develop it, and it helps to start to set the tone for how that tool provides outcomes. One of the good ways that you can remove any algorithmic discrimination is by involving other people in the development of your AI tool, checking the accessibility, and just hearing from a number of different people about what's important to them on any tool you're working on. And that's not specific to artificial intelligence. And I think you'll find a lot of things I talk about today are principles that you've applied elsewhere in your life whenever you're working on some sort of project. So it's no different here. Next up is data privacy. That's something we're probably all pretty familiar with working at the Health Science Center. And it is what you think it is. It's collecting data, using that data, storing it, and sharing it. We want to make sure that whatever tool we use is doing it responsibly. Today's artificial intelligence tool is UTVerse, and it has a lot of privacy built in, which is why we're highlighting it during the privacy talk. Next up is notice and explanation. A notice is just making sure that anyone who is interacting with artificial intelligence is aware. It's keeping people informed. And when you inform them that artificial intelligence is in use, you want to also be able to explain why and what the goal is with that artificial intelligence. Again, I would say it's a time to level set. For instance, if you create an artificial intelligence tool that you want to share with your subordinates or your students, it's great to already have a notice written and an explanation written so that as those people interact with that tool that you've built, they know exactly what your goal is and you're all working toward the same point. Last but not least are human alternatives and fallback. This is the human element. So since artificial intelligence is so new, it is emerging, you want to make sure that you have an alternative plan, something that doesn't rely so heavily on AI. There might be people who want to opt out of it. There might be people who just want to have an alternative route around that artificial intelligence. Or you might find that your tool, as it evolves, it might not have evolved in the way you imagined it. And so you might have to take it offline and work on it or replace it. And so it's important to already know what your backup or fallback would be in those scenarios. It prepares you for any type of future. So all of that was a mouthful, but don't worry, we have an acronym and it's SAFE. So secure. For the purposes of this talk, I would say that UTVerse has privacy built in, but right now we wouldn't say that artificial intelligence is secure just yet. Um, the Office of Cybersecurity has not approved, for instance, any legally protected data or any PII, which is personally identifiable information. Those two categories have not been approved to be entered into artificial intelligence tools, including UVerse. Um, and calling UVerse private but not secure, it is semantics, but it's just one way of thinking about the difference. So just keep in mind that as you're using it, UTVerse is meant more to safeguard institutional data than it is to safeguard anything that's legally protected. All right, and then next up is adaptable. Again, that's taking it back to the human element. Think about accessibility, think about people who might want to opt out of it. Think about the quality of data that you're feeding it to make sure that the algorithmic protections are in place to give everyone those accurate outcomes. Next up is factual. So that's again, those outcomes that continue to be consistent and true. When it comes to those outcomes, I would actually also add that you should check up on any AI tool that you create, probably at least every 3 months, just to see how it's evolving, to make sure it's still reaching the goals that you had in mind, and to update it for yourself. It's always great to go back and feed your AI new information. Okay, and then ethical. Ethical, you can think of that as the standards and the policies surrounding artificial intelligence. So right now, since we're thinking big, I would say that we're sort of developing these standards as a group. We're coming to the table and sharing what we've learned, and we're just starting to build that structure. But I would also say that we do have policies in place. For instance, if you download today's toolkit or when you receive today's toolkit in your email, you'll see a link to the Health Science Center's artificial intelligence policy. And so those are the kind of structures that help maintain our ethics as we work with this new technology. All right, so how do you apply these principles for yourself as faculty, staff, or student? First, go ahead when you make a new AI tool, especially one that you want to share with others, make sure that you plan to regularly check up on it. Check the effectiveness, check those outcomes, make sure everything is still accurate, or at least the majority of the time it's accurate. Like I said, because there's no specific policy to say, how effective is effective enough, it's up to the individual. So what I would say is, as you're asking questions, you want them to be mostly right. Um, I would say at least 80% of the time that the AI gets it right. Everybody knows that the AI can get it wrong, but you want mostly accurate and true responses. Next up, because AI is developing rapidly, I know a lot of the times when you see a technology has an update, you don't read the update. It's not particularly exciting. But AI's updates have been pretty revelatory. Um, the ability for it to understand larger bits of data, the ability for it to create images or videos, those things are all expounding by leaps and bounds. And so I would say that with the current atmosphere, um, even the least technical person might find the updates on any AI tool to be interesting, and things that they might want to apply to their own studies or projects. Next up is maintaining your own notice. So it's great to let people know when you're using artificial intelligence, not just to let them know the usefulness of it, but to keep them aware that artificial intelligence is being used, and that so they knowingly are informed and consenting to the use of it around them. Next up is sharing training resources. So, for instance, if anyone's here who's planning on sharing an artificial intelligence tool with students or subordinates or even peers, it's great to share the same training resources that you found helpful. So, whatever you use to get started, I would say 9 times out of 10, the next person would also like to have those same resources. So, that's wonderful. Next up is building that redundancy. And again, that's echoing the human elements there. Things happen. So, just like with anything, again, not specific to artificial intelligence, but with any technology, any tool, even if it was mechanical, you'd want to know what you would do if there was some sort of failure, or if someone wanted to opt out of it. You have a plan, you have a backup plan. And then bidirectional transparency. And I have to give credit to Tim Florence. He is the AI team lead over in the IT department. And he mentioned citing AI tools, or having students specifically cite whatever AI tool they use, similarly to how they would cite an article or a book that they use. And I thought that was such a great idea as we continue to develop these standards and policies around artificial intelligence. And so I would just say, just as you have noticed, like, you're modeling that notice, that transparency when you tell people you're using an artificial intelligence tool. And so just as you've modeled that transparency, I think it makes it a lot easier to ask for the same thing from your teammates, your subordinates, your students, to say, hey, if you're using artificial intelligence to make something, one, if you even allow it, but two, make sure you know what they're using and where they're using it, so that bidirectional transparency can really build trust between humans as we learn to use this new artificial intelligence. All right, so let's get a little bit more into the tool now that we're thinking about what security and ethics around artificial intelligence can look like. So the second bulletin point here is the URL or website that you visit to see UTverse. UTverse was made over in Knoxville by the Office of Innovative Technology. It's basically the IT department that's shared by the Knoxville campus and a number of people at the UT system level. So those employees got together and they built UTverse using ChatGPT. UTverse is a sequestered version of ChatGPT. So we took the same structure as ChatGPT, we sequestered it away from the public model to give you that privacy and to keep it internal to the university. And we built things specific to the university around that model so that as you interact with it, it's safe. All right, so the privacy features that are built into UTverse, one, and first and foremost, your data is protected. The things that you put in UTverse will not get outside of the organization. And again, when I think about the things that UTverse can keep private, I'm thinking about institutional knowledge. So your brainstorming, things that you can study but are public knowledge, different things like that, even research to an extent, all of that can go into UTverse without concern of it leaving the institution. And then there are no third-party tools added on to UTverse at this point, so you don't have to worry about that. And you certainly don't have to worry about anything you entered being used to train public models. I know that's a hot button issue right now, so you don't have to worry about that happening. And then, of course, access. When you go to the UTverse webpage, you'll notice that you sign in with your NetID and password, which means if your NetID is not active, you lose access. And that's a really big safeguard. And also, when you sign in, you do still see Duo, so it's still multi-factor authentication. So your information is kept safe and kept internal. So let's create an assistant. When you log into UTverse, this is the default page and the default assistant. The default assistant is the same as an agent. Probably quite a few of you have heard of agents or artificial agents or AI agents. They all mean the same thing. And day to day, the most likely place you'll interact with an agent or an assistant is in a chatbot. And so you can think of this assistant as a chatbot. It has a focus on general knowledge and it prioritizes knowledge specific to the University of Tennessee web pages. I do recommend interacting with this bot before making your own, just to sort of get a feel for how the conversation would flow um, with any agent or assistant. So if you look in the right hand or the upper right hand corner of this screenshot, you'll see my name, Camielle. Beside it, you'll see the agent I'm using, which is the default agent, just UTverse AI Assistant. And beside that, you'll see the cogwheel or gear. When you click the cogwheel or gear, it brings you to the settings page. And on the settings page, the menu is to the left. And the third item down is AI Assistance. It's currently highlighted. When you get to this page, you'll see the default assistant listed here. And you probably won't have anything else listed if this is your first time in UTverse. But again, you'll go up to the upper right and you'll see where it says Create Assistant. That's where you'll click to get started on your own individualized tool. That brings up a smaller window where you'll start to create your agent. You'll name it and you'll give it a description. You can think of the description the same as an explanation. The description is for your fellow humans. It's to level set with them about what they can expect from this assistant. And then when you go down, you'll see personality. Personality is where the magic happens. If anyone was here for the prompt engineering talk, this is where you'll apply sort of those same sort of ideas. You'll want to be as specific as you can. You'll want to set the tone for your agent on how it speaks to the folks who use it and the information that it prioritizes. The personality box is also a good place to start putting in your quality information. I often recommend that people use non-copyrighted websites, especially those that have .edu at the end, maybe .gov. Those are usually pretty good websites that are kept up to date and great for your assistant or bot or agent to use. Next up, you see the button that says Upload Avatar. That's just a photo that you can use to represent your assistant. Again, make sure it's not copyrighted. Just pick something that you find relevant to what your assistant does. And then you have tags. Tags are keywords that other humans will use to find your assistant. So for instance, if you were doing a chat that does math, you might put math as one of the tags so that people can easily find it. So when you scroll down, it'll ask you a few more details before the bot is made or the assistant is made. AI model. Again, UTverse is a sequestered version of ChatGPT. So in the drop-down, you'll find different versions of ChatGPT that have been sequestered for the use of the University of Tennessee. I almost always choose the latest model because generally the development of AI has been in an upward direction. So the latest model usually proves to be the best, and it's what I would recommend to you all at this point. If you look through the models, you'll also see a mini model. The mini prioritizes speed over accuracy. So when choosing the mini model, I would only choose it for personal use and not to share. Because usually when you share something, you want to prioritize the accuracy even over the speed. Typically, I'm sure there are exceptions, but typically. And then you go down to sharing options, and you can publicly share your tool in the public gallery where everybody with UT credentials can search for it. Or you can share it directly, generating a unique code that you directly send to any other specific person or persons that you want to use your tool. Last but not least, your assistant status. This enables you to quickly enable or disable the assistant. For instance, let's say you check up on the tool and it isn't giving the results you expect or want. Um, Instead of panicking, you come here and you can turn off the active status, and it removes the tool from everyone until you can modify it to your liking again. All right, so once you create the assistant, and again, we'll just use mine for example, it'll be listed beside the default assistant, and any other assistants that you might like will be listed in the same place. If you want to look through other people's assistants, you can click the green button for the UTverse gallery. In the gallery is where you'll search for assistants or agents that your colleagues have created. And this is across the whole system, not just the Health Science Center. You can also search using those keywords to see what's in any category you may be interested in. And you can just generally browse through. Right now, there's not a particularly long list. I think this is 3 pages worth of bots listed. So I think that's less than 30. So you could literally look at every one if you'd like to right now while it's early days. Let's get to the tips for use. So I'm going to echo a lot of the things that I've already said, but they're critical points. You cannot enter protected data in any artificial intelligence tool right now. None of those are approved by the Office of Cybersecurity. You can't enter any copyright data just because there's no licensing structure for you to do so yet. But there are lots of fun things to do and explore. So do experiments. The best way to find out how useful artificial intelligence can be for you is to try it out. Right now, like I said, because UTverse is sequestered, that helps so much to make your experimentation safe. And I'm so happy that the university can give you all the space to venture out and see what's possible. So I really encourage it. Do revisit. So check up on any AI tool that you use, that you share, that you expect other people to use. Do share it with colleagues. Again, this developing landscape can use as many voices as possible to get as much feedback as possible so that we can refine things and make things as standard and as easy as possible in the future. Do reference your own documents. So for instance, if you have a textbook that you use with your course, if you wrote the textbook or you happen to be the distributor, which I know is less likely, but if you wrote it, you can feed it to the artificial intelligence, and you can expect the people who use that artificial intelligence to be able to reference your documents in that way. Artificial intelligence will use sources, so it knows when it's referenced the book, if that book happens to belong to you. Also, if you have a shorter document, it's not a textbook, but you want to reference your own thesis, for instance, you can do that, I think, and it should be fine. And last but not least, just that emphasis on quality data going into the tool. So if you wanted to reference a website, then we really recommend you start with the least likely to be copyrighted websites, the .edus, the .orgs, and the .govs. Okay, we're pretty much wrapping up on the tool, so we'll get into some tips from the TLC, starting with feedback. I know I kind of just talked about how important feedback is. So I'll leave this QR code on the screen for a few seconds. So if you want to give us some feedback or give the TLC some feedback about this series or about my talk, you can certainly do so.
Camielle, there was a question in the chat about how do we reference UTverse when we use it. I don't know if that's something that you want to tackle on.
Sure. So at this point, because there's no formalized way to reference things, I would just start by adding a note. I haven't seen in an APA guide or an MLA guide how to reference these tools yet. So the standard, I think, will vary greatly for now. We're just starting. Um, if this person happens to be a team lead or a subordinate, you could probably just pick a style that makes sense to you, referencing the website. If someone's using UTverse specifically, you just cite the URL, and if they're using an assistant other than the defaults, then they can reference the name of that assistant as well.
Hi, this is Laura Talbot. Thank you. Your talk was great. A lot of publishing companies, when you submit a manuscript, if you used any type of AI tool, they want you to say it up front. So that's why I was asking the question, how would you recommend us referencing it? Is AMA style is what we typically use. I know other disciplines use APA, but they're wanting us to reference it and more importantly, to detail how we used it. Did we use it to create a table, or did we use it for grammar clarity, more spelling? Those type of details are being required now for a lot of journals. Thank you.
Let's see. Well, I can't say that I've gotten into the details of that yet, but it sounds like a good place for footnotes, since they want to be able to reference the specific areas in which AI was influential. So I'm not sure exactly, and I'm sure that it will evolve. But yeah, it sounds like a good place to be able to go back and have some numbered references like footnotes for anybody evaluating your work. I see Tom has his hand up.
Yes, that's a great question. I want to use this as an opportunity to put a plug in. We are going to have a webinar next month on exactly that kind of question, Laura, about how we deal with AI and journals and navigating all that research citations.
Thank you so much, Camielle, for presenting today, for bringing these questions about privacy and research. I like privacy in the use of UTverse, which I think is one of the key elements today, since everybody's using a lot of tools at different times. Even me, sometimes I need to consider, am I really approaching this other tool appropriately? For everybody else, we will have another session. The next session of AI in 30 is on November 7th. It will be our own Antoine Bean from the TLC team. He will be presenting on using AI tools for image generation for visuals. In the meantime, this recording from today will be put together as a 30 minutes short video, and it will be on the permanent links for the AI in 30 series, and you will get an email after today with a reminder about that. And also I will be using that opportunity to add Camielle's toolkit that she created for this session as well. So you'll be able to explore this issue further. Thank you for joining us. We will stay for another 5-10 minutes if anybody wants to actually continue the conversation. Everybody else, have a great day and stay on top of the AI tools if you can. It's fast, as Camielle said. And I'm going to reinforce Tom's comment, which I was going to try to use the opportunity to do. Dr. Devin Scott and I are going to put together on the use of AI tools in SOTL, in the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning and Research. So if you got time, that would be later on November as well. So keep the good work and have fun with those tools.